Fantastic, Tristan, to hear that sort of story of the customer journey mapping and the visualising. Could you now take us through some examples of your work, the work that you've done? And I guess we're particularly interested in those points where insights start to come and what you do with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to use initially a really simple example to kind of walk through so that the techniques will shine more than anything else. And so the specific example is I was helped improve the service of getting a transaction account with NAB. So basically the transaction account is the account that you use every day. You would have got a card attached to it. It's not the credit card, but the other card, like the EFTPOS card. And we wanted the service of getting one to be better. So the first and most important thing to do there wasn't sort of to jump out and do the contextual inquiry sort of stuff, which we did, but it was to figure out who needs to be in the boat with you when you're going a long way, because you do need to bring people along. Services operate in complex environments where often there's different people own different touch points, and those people need to come along with you to buy into the process. So basically what we did is we figured out who do we need to bring along. And in this instance, it was basically there was a product manager of transaction accounts, basically her bosses, and then also the people at the branch. So basically doing co-design with the bankers who are in a branch will be giving transaction accounts to people. And it takes quite a lot of time, but creating that buy-in before you begin is actually really important, because otherwise you'll end up generating insights that are basically useless. You kind of need to, at least in the environments that I'm in, have those insights be generated around the people that are going to use them, because not only does that make them believe them more, but it helps build their implicit knowledge. So they'll have implicit knowledge rather than just the explicit knowledge that you give them.
And how do you prepare those people? Because are they ready for that, or do you actually take them through?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So normally I do an introduction to service design, human-centered design, so actually talk them through the process, but it's very, very important to not scare them. So you have to figure out how ready they are for it, and then just sort of get them to figure out how pure you're going to be in your design and be a bit pragmatic. So if you think that they're not quite ready to do full contextual inquiries where you're going out into the world and watching it, and they might only be ready for people to come in and do interviews, then you sort of prep them to make the interviews more exploratory sort of interviews. So I've learned over my years being a service designer that you actually have to be really pragmatic. And because it's more important to bring those stakeholders along with you than to be absolutely pure to the design process, you need to figure out how to compromise.
Yeah, interesting. So that's like one of those intangible skills which I imagine you pick up from practice more than from a book.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like service designers are more design facilitators than they are sort of designers, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah. So if you're an architect, you do the drawings, but if you're designing a service, there is absolutely no way you could do that alone. You couldn't have that sort of practice. You need to bring people along with you.
And other examples of those sort of digging into the insights?
Yeah, okay.
Seeing things that otherwise you wouldn't have.
Yeah. So I might give a really specific example of how that emerged from the transaction accounts project, because it's something that everyone can relate to. So what we did there was basically we went out and we sat in bank branches for ages and just watched people get transaction accounts and talk to them. And what was really interesting there is I'll pass my baby boy across. There we go. You're going to be nice and quiet, Cassius. You're getting bored. But we watched people get accounts and talk to them about them and followed up afterwards. And what was really interesting is that it's like the unknown unknowns. Yeah. So the thing that emerged there for us was that there was this touch point that existed in the service, which we totally hadn't thought about, which is actually extremely important, which is this little card that the person in the bank branch gives you to write down your account numbers on, that you put in your wallet or purse before, basically waiting for your card to come. And everybody got it, everybody kept it, and it was this opportunity for design. And the other thing that we also found out was, by talking to people, is that after they left the bank branch, their intention was to wait until the card arrived to continue on and do things. So they didn't downloading the app to be able to transfer money, like setting up their salary to come into the account, all that sort of stuff. They'd wait until the card came. And because of that, lots of people lose momentum and they didn't finish. So we had this insight where everyone really likes this particular card that they have here. It's this particular touch point, it already exists. But yet they intend to do nothing until the card arrives, and we knew that was a week, and so we knew that they were not going to do anything there. So that was really, it was a really small but key insight. Which basically, after that, so what we did with it was we turned that card into a checklist, and a half filled out checklist. And the person in the branch would tick 2 or 3 things that had already been done and leave a list of remaining things that the person could do before their card arrived and suggest that they do those. And because we knew that card was going to be in their face every time they open up their wallet or purse, their likelihood of doing those tasks increased.
So I imagine you could take that sort of insight and apply it elsewhere, or look for it elsewhere, apart from that particular instance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly, I think that services are particularly about, even more so about behaviour than other forms of design. So you're really looking to drive particular types of behaviour. And I mean, that one checklist and suggesting what actions people should take. So how you suggest what action people should take, that's actually really important. So as I said before in customer journey mapping, how you got the boxes and the arrows. Yep. The boxes are, is the card, but the arrow is what you do next. So with services, it's very important to signpost to people to tell them, keep going.
And what sort of follow-up study do you do to see how those sort of insights that you've translated into a service or service are actually working?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I actually think it's something about the maturity of service design in Melbourne, is often you are involved, and people who work in consultancies will tell you they're often involved up front, and then they give this service to somebody else, and then down the line they look at the effectiveness. So I think the maturity of the industry is only just getting to the point where these things are actively being measured. So but basically you should think about the measurement in the same way that you think about the measurement of anything that you're going to design. So there's basically a couple of elements. So you want to talk about, is it meeting the needs for the business, and is it meeting the needs for the user? So the need for the business is to get more people, in that instance I was talking, was to get people to get more transaction accounts, and if they get them to use them. So it was really obvious. That is what you would measure. You basically look at the number of accounts that people open and compare that to the percentage that they actually use. So that would be the business measurement in that case. But then I think what's really much more important is actually to measure the user feeling of it, because that sort of predicts the future outcome. So there's all sorts of measures that you might use, and I'd say be quite judicious in what is important to which service. So in that one that I talked about, NAB would use Net Promoter Score. People might know what that is, but it's basically the advocacy of, so whether people are likely to recommend the account. But in other circumstances, I think it's important to figure out what is important to measure, particularly in lots of services, because a lot of the services you use every day are very kind of like mundane. You don't really think about them. Then a very much more important score will be customer effort. So how hard was this thing to use? Did you even think about using it, or did it fade into the background of your life?